Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another live session. I want us to briefly look at the by-elections that have just been concluded. I remember yesterday we looked at who the victors were. We analyzed why such victories were attained in the different elective positions. We looked at Mbeere North. Of course, we looked at Malava, Magarini, Banisa, Baringo, Kasipul, Ugunja, and such like. And so why the broad-based government or broad-based candidates won. Tonight, I want us to look at the biggest losers. And this comes as a result of a question that one of you asked yesterday, and we didn't get the time to address it. So I hope it's okay if we discussed that. The losers of the just concluded by-election can be classified into two categories: what I would call as major losers, and those who, in my opinion, I believe, must really sit down and rethink their next political moves. So we will begin with the biggest losers in this particular by-election. And I want to say that the biggest loser is none other. I'm now using singular loser. The biggest loser is none other than Rigathi Gachagua. And this is why. Yesterday, I told you that people judge you based on your utterances and the promises you make. So if you don't talk a lot, it's very difficult for people to judge you or blame you for certain things. But if you talk and you make undertakings, then people will want to remember that this is what you said. And so you don't have to run away from your commitments. Remember when Rigathi Gachagua was going to the US? So he went to the US, and of course, he was there for a while. He was supposed to take maybe 2 months, but he didn't stay longer. He said the reason as to why he cut short his trips was to come back and prepare for the by-elections. And there are a lot of videos of Rigathi Gachagua promising landslide victory in almost the parliamentary by-elections. He said Mbeere North was a done deal. Of course, William Ruto has no place in Loyaland. Some of them even said that ODM would lose in Magarini and Kasipul. And so when you make these utterances, ladies and gentlemen, people are bound to call you out when they don't come true. And that is why it is easy to assign the biggest loss to Rigathi Gachagua, because he is the one who promised the most. Through his speeches, he made it clear that the by-election was a duel between him and President Ruto, where he was going to prove to him that they are no match. He is not a match. They cannot compete. That he was going to wipe the floor with William Ruto. So that, in my opinion, is the biggest loser, ladies and gentlemen, and purely based on his utterances, not necessarily that he had a lot of stake in this by-election. If you asked me, Rigathi Gachagua would have stayed this out. He would have just relaxed and maybe wait for 2027. Because once you put yourself in the ring, it's difficult to get out and claim that you are not fighting. Because now giving messages of inspiration to those who lost, those who you had promised were going to win, That is just being, that is what we would call consoling yourself. But the truth is, he promised so much. In my opinion, he would have just stayed out of this by election and let the likes of Muturi and others do what they want to do. He should have not even bothered to field a candidate. But then also there are advantages of fielding a candidate, because he then scooped the MCA in Nairobi and some MCA in Masailand. So, ladies and gentlemen, if we were to answer the first question, who is the biggest loser, then I would say Rigathi Gachagua. And I repeat, purely based on his utterances. He promised a lot, he delivered very little. Under still the major category, uh, under the major category of losers still, I would say that Natembea comes in second. And Natembea also did what Rigathi did. He had promised that the East Highway movement had taken over, that the people of Western were tired with anything that supports William Ruto, that Western was a no-go zone for UDA in particular. So UDA winning against all these promises, ladies and gentlemen, in my opinion, means that Natembea is a loser. In fact, Natembea was the one who could have played this even safer, because all he could have done, in my opinion, all Natembea could have done would be to stay away. After all, Eugene is the party leader. So if Eugene is the party leader, he could have just stayed away and let Eugene take the blame. But then you see Natembea is aggressive, so he went he went ahead and made sure that the elections was about a duel between him and William Ruto. And so, ladies and gentlemen, those are the two major losers, in my opinion. If I would bring in two more, I can talk of Kalonzo, who ended up with an MCA seat in Machakos and nothing else. He got nothing outside the outside the Cumberland, which also, ladies and gentlemen, shows that Wiper is not that popular outside Cumberland. He tried to do a last-minute ditch from the by-elections, which would have worked in its favor by withdrawing his candidates from areas like Magarini, Malava, and other places. But it was too late for him, because people had seen his candidates. Some of them, their names were already appearing on the ballot paper. So Kalonzo is also a loser, but not at the extent of Rigathi and Natembea. Another loser, of course, the obvious one here is Muturi. Muturi is somebody who Ruto dared, because he dared William Ruto. He was in government, but he behaved as if he was not in government. And then he walked out, and he was this guy who was saying so much. So Ruto caused a by-election in his own constituency and poached the only DP MP and made that DP a the DP MP a cabinet minister. After which, now the by-election had been occasioned, and then he goes ahead and he wins that, which means, as we speak, ladies and gentlemen, Muturi doesn't have an MP. DP is not a parliamentary party anymore. And considering the anger you show, the anger Muturi was exhibiting yesterday, it was very clear that that election for him was a do or die. Unfortunately, politically speaking, he died. Now, that is category one, major losers. I want to now interest you, and we look at the minor losers, people who might now have to rethink their political moves moving forward. These are people who disobeyed or dissented against the position of their parties. We begin with Mohammed Ali from Mombasa. He supported a candidate called Kenga Stanley, and a DCP candidate, and he made it about him and Joe promised a lot, and of course they lost. Now his stay in UDA is going to be a little bit difficult. He will have to now openly just move to DCP because I don't see him getting the support of those in UDA moving forward. That is Muhammad Ali. Another person who needs to rethink his politics is the bullfighter, Boni Alwale. Boni Alwale, I told you, if you bring in Baraza, you are friendly to Baraza, Boni Alwale would look at it as if it is a betrayal. And so he decided to support DAP. And supporting DAP when you are the majority whip in Senate is a very risky move because chances are that he might be de-whipped, though that is not Ruto's modus operandi. He doesn't do politics of that manner. But chances are that there may be need to replace Boni Aluale with another whip because if he's the one to whip UDA parliamentarians, or especially senators, to do government bidding, and he's already conflicted, he's supporting the other team, he might be removed. So he has to think: is he going to go to DAP officially and start hanging out with them and plan to vie for governor through DAP, or is he going to call his tail, come back to? Is he going to call his tail and come back to the party, UDA, and maybe say, "I'm sorry, I made a bad move, but now I've learned from my mistakes and I'm moving forward." So those are things that are possible. Another guy who must also do serious soul searching, and I mean serious soul searching, is the deputy governor for Homa Bay, the Honorable Magwanga Joseph. So Magwanga is a very popular politician from Homa Bay. Actually, when he vied against Awiti in 2017, having been MP for 2 terms in Kasepo, he vied in 2017 against Governor Awiti. And that particular election, he won anyway. I remember the court cases. If you were following, he went to court. The High Court nullified Awiti's election. Awiti ran to Court of Appeal. The Court of Appeal nullified that election of Awiti. And Awiti had given up. So what helped him is that around 2018, there was a handshake between Raila Odinga and Uhuru Kenyatta. So after that handshake, Awiti says, I'm just quoting him, this is something he said publicly, he had given up, but then Raila told him to take the matter to the Supreme Court, that there is how it was going to be solved. And as promised, the Supreme Court retained him as the governor. It was a very funny thing. It led to uh, the resignation of some Supreme Court judges. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is Magwanga for you. He's very popular. But he made a bet and supported Aroko. Aroko was an independent candidate because Magwanga and the late Ngondowere never saw eye to eye. In fact, even when Magwanga made a contribution to the funeral arrangements of Ngondowere, the money was returned back to him. It was rejected. He didn't even attend the burial. And because of that animosity between Magwanga and Ngondowere, even when Ngondowere was alive, there was a serious tension between him and his boss, Gladys Wanga, because Gladys Wanga was a friend of Ngondowere, and Ngondowere was her confidant. Yet that Ngondowere was a personal political enemy of Joseph Magwanga. So lately, most recently, as the campaigns were winding, Magwanga decided to openly support Aroko. A bad move, in my opinion, unless he was ready for the consequences. But he did that nonetheless. Actually, he openly supported Philip Paroko, and he said that people should vote for Philip Paroko, that he was not going to support the son of Ngondowere because mtoto wa nyoka ni nyoka. Unfortunately, Aroko didn't win. And so today, while speaking in one of the events in Homa Bay, Gladys Wanga was now daring those who are not comfortable with her leadership to leave. And you could tell people around her have already said that Magwanga must be, either he resigns or he must be impeached. And if it comes to that, my advice would be simple. If it comes to that, my advice would be simple. Resign, because then you have a chance to vie come 2027. And this is why I'm saying so. Gladys Wanga has proven to be very vicious. So if they can impeach Magwanga from the county assembly, then ODM will try to blackmail UDA senators to support the impeachment of Magwanga in the spirit of the broad-based arrangement. And you never know. Some senators might be reached and they might decide to send this guy away. After all, Magwanga is not very popular at the national level. So he will be, is expendable, politically speaking, at the Senate if it comes to that. So my advice would be for him to resign. But for Boni Alwale, what I was saying is he has to just leave your position in UDA, start openly associating with DAPK, and even plan to vie through that party. That way you are okay. That is what I think, ladies and gentlemen, in my opinion. Those are now the what we call second tier losers: Magwanga, Mohamed Chopevu, and of course Boni Alwale. Let me sample some of your comments. Otherwise, that is what I wanted to share with you in this particular video. I don't know whether the quality is okay. There's a question here. There's EM, greetings. I greet you too. Charles, he says United Opposition won by counting all the votes in the opposition. They have defeated Ruto. I want to, how is that? What angle would that be? I thought elections are considered won or lost based on who was declared the winner. You see, even if we take Mbere, for instance, there is somebody who was arguing that, the margin in Mbere was so small. It tells you that Rigathi Gachagua and others did a wonderful job. In fact, as far as Mbere is concerned, you can proudly say that the opposition won massively, even though they were not declared the winner. Ladies and gentlemen, if you look, just a simple look at the history of Mbere elections, Mbere North, that is, the person who has won, I think, with the highest vote difference was about 1,000. So it's not like Mbere people win by a landslide. Mbere is like Langata constituency. The highest somebody has ever gotten in terms of the margin of winning is about 3,000 votes. Mostly it is 2,000 or 3,000. So Mbere, that is how they have voted before. Even Malava, in Malava, the last election of 2022, UDA, ladies and gentlemen, UDA got 20,000 votes and Malulu Injendi got 22,000. Even then, the difference was so small. So it's not unique. Those are not places where people win by a landslide. But Charles, I'm not ruling you out. Perhaps you have another angle in which you think the opposition won. Edquest is saying, can someone check at Karen Hospital? No, no, I don't know. I don't know about that. Sophia, welcome. There is David who's saying Samia steals 95, 98%, Ruto steals 0.1. Both is theft, which have serious consequences. So in both cases, David, you have to prove anyway. You cannot just say somebody stole. That is why Kenya has an advantage. Kenya, you see, unlike Tanzania, where you can petition, unlike Tanzania, where you can't petition an election, because according to the laws of Tanzania, there is no election petition. In Kenya, you can go to court, and it has been proven before that if you have serious reasons, you can actually get an election nullified. We've even seen a presidential election nullified in the country. So if you have evidence that an election was stolen, it's okay. You can proceed, in my opinion, to court, prove that, get that thing, get that thing nullified, whichever you feel. There is BM7. How do you gauge Matiangi in this by-election outcome? Matiangi did what I expected Rigathi to do. Just stay away. Just campaign, but not so much. Don't invest a lot. But in Kisii, I think what I told you yesterday holds. Kisiis are likely to vote with Matiangi. So if Matiangi is going to be in Jubilee and a candidate, Kisii and Nyamira will produce most of the leaders there will be elected on the party Matiangi is in. There is Samuel Maura who says fake analysts. I don't know what that refers to. I hope I'm not one of them, Samuel. Evanson Gigi, can you kindly do for Narok MCA that DCP took? Actually, I spoke about this. It had everything to do with demography. The demographics of Narok town. If you know, you know. We have Japheth Mukoyani. As a Gen Z from Mombasa, Ruto is really a genius in politics. In Mombasa, Muhammad Ali sees himself as good, disrespecting coast kingpin. We will vote him out, cover in place. Muhammad Ali is not easy to vote out. That I can tell you, Japheth. At Nyali level, it's very difficult to vote him out. Not just because he's vocal and he says, the guy is doing a lot there. Some of you who have gotten an opportunity to go to Nyali, you can attest, he's doing a lot. So those people like him. That is why he was elected with an independent in a place that ODM swept almost every seat. And then secondly, he vied in UDA, with UDA in 2022 and was elected. He can even go as an independent in 2027 and Muhammad Ali would still have a fighting chance. Though I'm not ruling out that as a voter there, you have decided you are going to vote him out. But I can tell you it's not going to be very easy. Muhammad Ali is not your ordinary politician. As far as Nyali is concerned, those people like the guy. I have been there. So even if I differ with him politically, I'm not saying I differ with him politically, but even if I was, I would not run away from the fact that he actually has a serious stronghold in the name of Nyali constituency. Sophia is saying, thankful, sir. Be assured this is the one channel I look forward to. Sophia, thank you so much for standing with me. We started a long time ago. And guys, we are almost 100 people are watching and only 13 have liked. That means that majority are not very comfortable with the analysis. You just share with me anyway. That is why I do these lives. These ones we can interact, we can talk. But I think I've shared with you what I wanted to share. It was just briefly answering a question somebody had asked: who are the main losers in the just concluded by election? And I've told you we divide the losers in two groups: major losers and minor losers. Major, Rigathi Natembea, followed by Kalonzo, and of course, one Muturi. Minor losers, Muhammad Ali, you have Aluale, and of course, Oyugi Magwanga. That is what I wanted to share with you. If you have questions, you can ask. But if we don't have questions, let me see if there's anything I've not read. I think I've read your chats, and I've responded to almost all of them. What I would suggest is that if you found value in this, you can drop a like, and of course, even share this live. Otherwise, allow me to thank you so much for taking your time. I know it is late, especially those who are watching from Kenya, for taking your time so that we could do this live together. I think if there is no any other thing, I'll end that here. But we will be doing these lives occasionally. If there are things, if it is something you need. Justin Muturi is claiming a rigging. That was expected. Actually, we expect a lot to come from the opposition. There's something, Sophia. There's something I wanted to. There's something I wanted to say about Kenya's politics. Kenya's elections are the most expensive, if not in Africa, maybe one of the most expensive in the world. We spend about 3,000 per voter, something that our GDP should not even allow. It is in Kenya where you find that election is costing upwards of 40 billions. And our population is smaller than even DRC Congo. The issue here is, and the reason as to why we change the BVR kits every election and we do what, Kenyans have not reached a level where they trust each other. And because they don't trust each other, the belief is that if I sit in a position of authority, I would favor my people. And so there is that trust deficit, a lot of trust deficit. There is nothing you can do that people won't find fault with as far as elections are concerned. There is no election that has never been challenged in this country. So expecting people to go to court or even to claim rigging is almost expected, is guaranteed. If you have a case where somebody doesn't go to court, it's a miracle in Kenya because we don't trust each other. Not that we can prove that there was rigging, etc. No. In fact, in Kenya, even when the observers come and say they didn't see any problem, then we just say those observers were compromised. Because according to us, we go into elections with the belief that we are going to win or win. And if we were not to win, then it has been rigged. I remember in 2013, we had a candidate who was depending entirely on the social media support. Very wonderful lesson learned. So this candidate went into the election because he was getting massive support from social media. And when I say massive, I'm saying massive. He was being told, you are the winner, you are going to do this. Opinion polls were being conducted. We would do those opinion polls. And the funny thing with opinion polls, Sophia, the ones especially that on social media, is that most of the people responding to your polls are people in your cycle. And these are people who are mostly aligned with your views. I saw recently they were doing an online poll between Philip Paroko and Boyd Were in Kasipul. And Philip Paroko blew the young boy out of water. It was interesting. But I knew, based on the experience I was sharing with you of 2013, that social media um, support, while critical, might not translate into votes on the day of voting. Even today, even the most recent by-election, the one that was just concluded, you could see properly that the so-called Gen Zs were not on the line voting. They were on social media doing something else. But what I was telling you is that that candidate of ours went into the election believing that he was going to win. Shock on us. The entire nation, the candidate got 74,000 votes, even though our social media post would attract even 200,000 comments and likes. It was blowing. And considering you are looking at 2013, that was huge. But Nairobi itself gave the candidate 24,000 votes. So this person was persuaded that it was rigged, but then we shared with them that at least be realistic. Nobody rigged you. But I was just telling you that in Kenya, uh, nobody believes that you can win elections without stealing. If if uh, if UDA was in opposition and DCP, or let's say DP, and Rigathi and this team were in government and they won Bere, I can assure you that the UDA team would claim that DCP team or the DP team rigged that election. That is what they would say. It's very common in Kenya. I'm not saying there are not cases of uh, irregularities. They are there, but they are not as common because we invest so much as a country in trying to satisfy the curiosity or alleviate or allay all the suspicions that people have. So it's very difficult to rig an election in Kenya, unlike other places. Very difficult, I can assure you. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but it is difficult. But expecting people not to say elections were rigged in Kenya is impossible. So it's okay to say, it's okay to see Muturi claiming that elections were rigged. There is some guy, Wanjeri is saying, does stealing count as winning? The commentator goes ahead to say fake winners. So if you can prove, there's something I shared with Charles earlier on, that the beauty with this country is that if you have issues with elections, if there is a part of you that feel that the process was not fair, you go to court. And if you have evidence, you can actually succeed to get an election nullified. It is very possible in Kenya. So instead of just saying fake winners or election was stolen, you just say, let's go to court. We have this evidence. That is what we would advise supporters of Raila. I remember, instead of just saying elections were stolen, you go to court and prove that. There is George Misuko who is saying, can the Mbere North 50-50 be extended to Mount Kenya West? Not really. This is based on what I've seen on the ground. I've had the privilege of moving through the counties of Kiambu, Murang'a, Nyeri, Kirinyaga, and of course Nyandarua, not once, in several locations. And we go even to the most remote parts. In former Central, it has nothing to do with Rigathi Gachagua but more or less a hatred towards William Ruto. So if this by-election was, let's say, in Nyeri, the results would have been very different. That I can tell you, George Misuko. I don't think you can transfer the 50-50 in Mount Kenya East to Mount Kenya West. In Mount Kenya West, save for parts of Kiambu because it is cosmopolitan, it is highly likely that they would have voted overwhelmingly to punish William Ruto. I could be wrong though. Jimmy Kim from Uganda, thank you so much. Crescent Palms is watching from Tripoli. Okay, thank you. You can say where you're watching from. And also, just as a reminder, if you're finding value, like the video. But George Mesuko, I want to confirm to you why I want to give, at least give some backing for my claim that the result would be different in Mount Kenya West. You saw the by-election in Karobangi, that of the MCA. Majority of the people who live there, a sizable number, are from Mount Kenya. And that is why it was easy for DCP to win there. That also tells you that in places like Kasarani, in places like Roysambu, DCP has a high chance of getting those seats. Let me see if Ngeno Hillary was saying, what is the significance of this by-election going towards 2027? By-elections are like mock exam, especially when they are done a few months to election or barely a year to election. It's like mock. Those of you who went through mock is like what you will have, something that is akin to what will happen in the general election. Remember, around the time when we had the handshake between Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga, there were by-elections in Mount Kenya, in Juja, and there was also another by-election in Kiamba. And both by-elections went the Ruto way, and in the general election, the same happened. It's not as if Ruto now lost those seats. No, he won the same seats. So, ladies and gentlemen, by-elections have serious significance, especially when they are done closer to elections, to the general elections. It tells you that in Mount Kenya East, it will be a 50-50 affair. In Mount Kenya West, it can be a 70-30. But in other parts of the country, Western, other parts of the country, like maybe Northeastern, that one has flipped to William Ruto. Whether it is Turkana, those ones are flipped to William Ruto. Whether Samburu, those ones are flipped. Those are supporting William Ruto. He didn't have them before, but now he has them. The broad-based partners in ODM are also likely to vote for William Ruto come 2027. There is Jack Navigator. Very composed, humble, but very sharp. Okay, I'm humbled. Okay. There is EM is what about the National Infrastructure Fund and Sovereign Wealth Fund? Could you touch on that in terms of how that works exactly? Would you want EM? Would you want a specific video? Because this is a topic I'm passionate about, by the way, on the issue of sovereign fund or infrastructure fund. This is a topic that I am very passionate about. If a number of you said they wanted this as a subject, I can actually do a very lengthy and live video where we will do question and answers on issues like sovereign fund, sovereign wealth fund, and infrastructure fund. But I think this particular video might be limiting. It might not cover as much as you would want, Bwana or Madam EM51. There is There is G.K. Mwangi. So Gachagua is finished or no, he's not. Actually, the only thing that has happened to Gachagua is now he knows that whereas he controls, uh, he has an overwhelming support in Mount Kenya West, the Kindiki factor is still playing a bigger role in Mount Kenya East, because the argument is simple. When they were in government, and they are referring to the Kikuyus, they were in government, the government was good, and we were supposed to support them, people of Embu, Meru, Taraka. But now when our son is government, the government is bad, and we are supposed to walk out. So that narrative works there. I have been there on the ground. Most of the time, ladies and gentlemen, I say it here that I respect you enough that I will not feed you what I cannot prove or what I have not seen. And I can tell you in those areas, it is 50-50. Some people really like Gachagua, even in Taraka. I can tell you, even in Taraka, it is still 50-50. Gachagua still has a lot of sway there, but not the way he does in Central. In Central, it is a 70-30 affair. So Gachagua is not finished, Bwana Mwangi, unless you are looking at it from a specific angle and you have an idea. I don't think Gachagua is finished. There is Lucy who says, why are you not talking about the 3 seats Gachagua won and DCP is a young party? Also, Gachagua didn't have a candidate in Bere North or Malava. How is he a loser in Bere North? If I'm to answer Lucy candidly, and you deserve that answer, let me approach it this way. Gachagua made certain promises. I want you to get that. He didn't have a candidate in Bere North, not because he had not fielded a candidate in Bere North. He did field a candidate in Bere North. Only that Muturi threw tantrums and threatened to walk out of the united opposition. He said, Muturi, in his argument, said that Mbere North was his seat. It was a DP seat. It would be unfair for DCP to field a candidate there. And remember, if you have been following the politics of Mbere North, the first people to be unveiled were the candidates of DCP. These people had to withdraw later after these talks, these boardroom talks with Rigathi, where they negotiated with Muturi. Muturi even went publicly and said there are people who think they can force us with party, referring to Rigathi Gachagua, DCP. So Rigathi initially had a candidate there. In fact, his candidate, Mr. Mbui, went and now vied with Moses Kuria's party, Chama cha Kazi. He still vied. But back to your question, why are we not celebrating his MCA seats? And why are we not seeing that DCP is a young party? And why are we blaming him from Bere North? I have just told you, in Bere North, not only did he have a candidate before, but secondly, he went to Bere North campaigning door to door, making promises. He is the one who promised that he was going to show William Ruto dust in Bere North. People are judged by the promises and the claims they make. If today I promise you that I will do 1, 2, 3, then you are waiting for me to do exactly that. When I don't do it, then you say I have failed. That is what makes Rigathi Gachagua a bigger loser. He's a bigger loser because he promised more and delivered almost nothing. Rigathi Gachagua did not promise that he would deliver 3 MCA seats. No. His exact words were, this by-election will be a referendum against William Ruto. William Ruto will realize that Kenyans don't like him. That way, they were going to win Magarini. He said they were going to win Malava. Of course, Mbere North, he said there is no way. Even his last interview with the so-called Gen Zs, he was categorical that there is no way they can lose Mbere. So when that Mbere is lost and he had made a bet, he had put his name there, when he loses that, you can now blame him for Mbere. I hope you understand that. Now, we are not dismissing the victory of the MCS, etc. I'm just saying that when you promise big, deliver big. If you promise big and deliver small, we say you've lost. That, I think, Lucy, would be how I would explain, but I could be wrong. Perhaps you have a way you are understanding this. There is Mwamu Kongan. Okay. Opposition is clueless. President Ruto will defeat those jokers very early. They are not clueless. This I disagree. Even with when the president says that the opposition is clueless, I disagree. The problem is because it's not as if Rigathi and these people can't come up with a program or tell people this is what they would do. The issue is they came together under wrong premise. That is the problem with the opposition as currently constituted. They came together under wrong premise. What brought them together is wrong. You cannot form an opposition or united opposition against an individual. You can't say and tell people proudly that if I'm given a choice between a dog and William Ruto, I will choose a dog. That says so much about why you've come together. It means you have come together out of bitterness. Rigathi made it clear, ladies and gentlemen, that even if Ruto was to connect milk to each and every home, he will still be voted out. That means that even if he was to deliver, they will still vote him out. The issue is with an individual, and that is where the opposition went wrong. They came together to fight an individual. For them, William Ruto must go whether he's performing or not performing. That is why they are saying they don't have any other agenda. The agenda they have is to send Ruto home. And that agenda, ladies and gentlemen, that I can tell you for sure cannot send William Ruto home. You can't just say so and so is bad. People know you. None of the people you see in the so-called opposition today has not been in government. None. Rigathi was in government supporting everything Ruto was doing until he was impeached. Then now he's against everything that Ruto was doing. That Kalonzo you see there has served in Moi's government and even in Kibaki's government. He's been, actually no politician competes with Kalonzo in terms of serving in government. He's been there. Whether it is during the dark days of KANU, he was there. So Matiang'i was just recently with Uhuru here. None of these people have not been in government. They are not new, they are not unique, they are not what you would call clean. But I think I've answered that. They're not as clueless, they're just bitter. And when you are bitter, you cannot be rational. So EM is saying that we should have a video that covers that. I can set up a poll. If we can set up a poll, and then we see about sovereign fund or infrastructure. So you vote here, yes or no. There's a poll there. You can vote if you want us to do a video about a sovereign fund. You can just share there in yes or no, and then if we get a good number, then we can do this video. But I hope I've answered most of your questions, especially Lucy. I believe I answered you. Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, that was it. I can see people are voting. And also, as you vote, also drop a like if you're finding value. That is, if you're not finding a value, you can also unlike the video. You can also give it a thumbs down, at least so that we know what's going on. There is GK Mwangi asking Kalonzo and Matiangi, who fits most for incoming preso? There is Automata. What about the low voter turnout in Nyanza? Let's deal with the Mwangi's question. Kalonzo and Matiangi, who fits most to be the incoming president? That means that you believe William Ruto is going to be a one-term president, which is interesting. But if you were to pick between Kalonzo and Matiangi, each has their advantage. Kalonzo is reserved, which is good for stability. Matiangi is firm, which is good for delivery. Either would do. They can even be a ticket. There is a